ISO FileMaker Magazine, the professional's resource for FileMaker know-how.
Well, hello there and welcome back to yet another FileMaker tutorial video where we are going to learn more about FileMaker Pro and doing all the cool stuff like using MapKit. Now this is a Macintosh and iOS only feature. In fact, you can't use it in FileMaker Go. You'll have to create an iOS SDK app. But if you have to do anything with any type of mapping, this is by far, in my opinion, one of the easiest, most powerful ways to work with a map. Let's take a look at what I'm talking about. All right, thank you for joining me here on my desktop. As you can see, we have this file here. Now, I will be letting you have access to this file. I'm making it completely available for free. It does use the MBS plugin, so you are only going to be able to do this either on Macintosh or on iOS via the iOS SDK, meaning you can't use this within FileMaker Go. So its utility is limited to Macintosh, or if you bind the FileMaker Go application to your application, then you get all of the cool power that I'm going to show you here. Sorry, Windows users, MapKit is an Apple technology, and Christian, who created the MBS plugin, is just tying into this. But if you are doing anything on the Macintosh, this is by far the easiest way to deal with a map. So you can see right here that I have this mention of click to show address. I currently have Los Angeles in there. We will see how easy this is to do things. I'm in Los Angeles right now. It will take area codes as well. 29036 is my area code, and it will take me right there to the area of Chapin, Lake Murray, where I live. The coolest thing about this is Christian has done so much of the work for you via the MBS plugin that to implement this with my file that you have here, being able to copy and paste directly into your own solution, most of a lot of the work is already done. Now, the cool thing is everything that you get with MapKit, you get right here in FileMaker. So for example, let's go back to Los Angeles. It doesn't matter what you want to do. Angeles, California. Now, only general searches will work. You can't do something as specific as an address. This isn't like using Google Maps. I've implemented Google Maps into a web viewer, and this is not a web viewer. We're going to be talking about all of the details of how to implement this and how easy it is. But the key thing here is, one of the things that I found out about this, you can see that I've got some toggles on here. In particular, this points of interest, and I also have crosshairs. Now, crosshairs is going to become the coolest feature of using MapKit embedded into your FileMaker solution on the Macintosh here. Now, the point of interest, you can see right here, I've got, for example, the Los Angeles International. If I want that off, I can control what does and doesn't show on MapKit. There's all kinds of options. Whether this compass shows or not, whether the zoom controls show or not, are all within my control. But if you're a solar installer and you're down at the highest zoom level and you're trying to plan out solar, you can use the compass in order to move things around. Anything that you have, or most things that you have in Apple Maps application, you now have directly here within FileMaker. I can double click this and it will resume. The biggest advantage that we have here is the coordinates. What I found out, or when playing with this, the initial time that I play with it, I noticed that the initial coordinates, there are a couple of functions that will take the coordinates of the dead center of whatever your view is. So the fact that I've got this view here and the fact that it scrolls out, after the MapKit has been initialized by the MBS plugin, it knows this corner, this corner, this corner, and this corner. So when I get the lat and long, which I'm just simply showing in a FileMaker dialog, and we'll go through a lot of the details here if you want to stick around and see those. Otherwise, you can go grab the file off of the magazine website. If you like this type of content, you can get more of it via FileMakerMagazine.com. But this lat and long, what you can do with it is reverse geocode, and the MBS plugin provides a function for that. That's only one function. It's a one-line call that you can see right here. If I put this this house right here in the dead center, sorry to this person, whoever you are, if I click on info, we can see that it is 10828 South Firma Avenue, Inglewood, California, and it will pick up the accuracy really, really nicely. But On top of that, you can see right here that I have this additional stuff: vertical accuracy, timestamp, region, radius, latitude, longitude, the magic things that give you all kinds of stuff, time zones, the actual address, place marks. All of this is in JSON, and this comes back from the geocoder that the MBS plugin provides for free. You don't have to pay for an API. Now, I don't know if you just do many of them over and over again, but from the standpoint of a planning tool, this is absolutely awesome. Now, let's take a look at pins right here. Let's zoom out. And it's so easy to zoom. You can pinch and zoom on iOS. It's absolutely wonderful within the SDK. Let's zoom out, find a big park right here. So let's, or a golf course. Sure, let's go for a golf course. We'll pretend this is a park, and let's say I'm planning out a race, and I need to use different points. The coolest thing that I found out about this, and I thought about, because this map is being rendered here on screen, and it uses a FileMaker object, and you can pass that object. That object provides the coordinates of where that map needs to be rendered. You can have multiple of them, so I can have 4 different maps on one FileMaker layout, all of them individually coordinating different things, all of them individually having the feature set that I show you here, which in particular, pins are going to be absolutely awesome. The mind-blowing coolness about this fact right here is I recognized that there were 2 functions to get the latitude and the longitude of the dead center point. So I thought to myself, well, I need to be able to see the dead center point. But this is just an object that's being rendered on a FileMaker layout, and I can put anything on a FileMaker layout. So check this out. With this crosshairs, I get to simply overlay FileMaker lines and a box directly on top of the MapKit, which uniquely and perfectly identifies dead center, allowing me to still position the map to get it wherever I want. So let's say I'm putting together a race, and I've got a red group and a blue group, and they're going off in different directions. Well, with this ability right here, I made these pins, and you get to actually insert pins. When I click this pin, it's going to tell me what the address is. Now, I could turn off the dialog, but you can see that the pin shows up. And I could say, okay, now you're going to go to this direction right here. And then you're going to go to this direction. And notice what's happening is also at the bottom, I'm actually collecting all of these points. So if I click on JSON right here, and this is simply setting a value into, you can see right here, I've got all of this data. So if I click on the JSON of this, all I'm doing is I'm formatting the JSON of what I had captured, and the capture is actually capturing my latitude, my longitude, the address string, place marks, all of the points, region, everything that you could want if you're doing anything with a map is right here for you. So the cool thing is we just zoom back out, and let's say we're starting back at our point, and I go to my pins, and I now start the blue route. And let's say the blue route goes up this direction. So the coolest thing is, and let's zoom all the way out to a farther area. Let's zoom out where, for some reason, we're doing cross country, and we're going to Santa Fe. And let's just put an orange pin right here over at this place. We've got this feature right here, show all points. Essentially, you can map, you can put overlays, you can put regions, you can put pins, you can put anything, and this MapKit, you can see right there, will zoom out to show me all of my points. Turn my crosshairs off. What else could I put over a map? Now, you'll notice that when I have the crosshairs turned on, if I select directly on this line, or if I try to put the arrow point right on a line, sometimes I can get it, sometimes I can't. The object that you overlay on top of what's being rendered, you can't click on it. So let's go into layout mode, and let's take a look at this. So you can see right here what I've done is I've got a line here, I've got a line here. All I did is I used the alignment tools with my object. My object is simply just a text box. We can see that when we click right here. We can see that with this selected, we can see that it is a text box. On top of that, when we use the object inspector, which we see right there, I can select on this line. The line happens to be above the text box. So there's the text box object right there. I'm hiding that actually. So we can see that it is a text box. The only thing that you have to have in order to initialize and create a map using the MapKit from the MBS plugin is a named object. So with this object aptly named map here, and this could be named whatever you want, where you could have multiple of them. You could have map 1, map 2, map 3, however many maps you want on the layout, with whatever you want on each of those. One map can have crosshairs, another map can have a region, and then let's check this out. So I can get a box, and I can draw a box, and I'm going to give that box not a solid color, but I'll make it a color that is red. Then I'll go to the other color, and what we'll do is we'll change the transparency right there, and we will set the line to none. Now I'm going to align this box and use my alignment tools. I can use the auto sizing that we have right here and anchor this wherever I want. Now, if I wanted this to occupy 1/4 or 1 quadrant, I will simply select this and this, align them both up at the top. What is this? This is a 306 width object. So I will take 306 and divide it by 2. I'm too lazy, so I'll just use this. That's 153, so I'll make this box 153 by 153. So that is now the upper quadrant of this area. So now when I go into browse mode, and I need to change the anchoring on that so that it anchors on all of the 4, and we zoom out, I don't know what's going on here. It's only going to anchor, that's right. Because this is resizing, the resizing of that object is going to be a little bit different. But let's say we're on a fixed size, within a fixed size, which I've got a iPhone sized window right here so that you can review it on both. We'll show the address right there. So you can see that when I click, I am clicking right here and I'm attempting to drag. I can't drag in this area because what's receiving the click is it's not the MapKit where I'm receiving this here. So lines will work really well, but as soon as you have an object on top of where the MapKit is being rendered, that object gets the click. Now that means you can do cool things with buttons. I could put a button in this area. I could have put buttons down in the bottom that do things that you would just have to know that you can't click or pinch and zoom because the FileMaker object receives the click instead. But here's a cool thing that I could do with this, with the MapKit. Think about all the things that you could do. Let's say I am zoomed in at whatever percentage I set. Now I can make the map non-zoomable and set a fixed zoom. So in other words, let's say that I'm only using this quadrant and this quadrant in terms of my map. I'm just splitting the view, and I set this at a zoom that is like this view right here. And what the objective is on a really large monitor is to see how many homes have pools. And I can basically say I've got a count of 2 homes that have a pool. So then I input or I click a button or whatever it is, and once I capture that, then on the MapKit, I can render a polygon or an area that says this area has been covered with the same color that I'm using for the overlay. So in other words, this would become a heavier overlay because the MapKit is rendering an overlay, plus I have the FileMaker overlay on top of it, and it becomes darker. I can then move from this side, reposition the map, and say, okay, I'm now in a new area. Okay, that's got 3 pools. And then each time that I move, okay, now I've got 3. I can basically do all kinds of different things by using the combination of FileMaker objects with the MapKit, knowing that my FileMaker objects can render on top of the MapKit, and I get to control translucency. All of that discovered because of, I don't know if anybody else is using MapKit and the MBS plugin in order to do things like I just discovered, but for me, this opened up a world of possibilities for what I can do in my FileMaker solution. So let's take a look and talk about How is it easiest to implement this? How did I implement in this file? I'm going to talk about the details. If you don't want to watch the rest of this video and understand some of these implementations, you of course can just go download the file and just have fun with it. It is absolutely cool. Monkey Bread has a trial plugin that you can, or a trial license that you can ask for and you can get. I will of course have a link down on the within the description of this area if you want to jump to the Monkey Bread website, and in particular the Monkey Bread documentation. You can find that in the YouTube video as well. But let's head into the implementation, the details. How do we actually get this to work, and what's the best way to implement? All right, let's talk about the implementation and the details about how you can get this, and depending on how you're going to implement, what you need to do. First off, when you tell the MBS plugin to make a map, it is reserving or creating an instance within the plugin's memory space of a MapKit rendering, or working with an instance of MapKit. Now we can see right here that I've got this global variable called mbs.mapView. You need to save the ID value that comes back from a call that you make to initialize any number of MapKit views. Now you can, as I stated, have multiple. I could put on a layout 4 different MapKits and have 4 different things going on, which is absolutely wonderful. And each one of those can use data from the other one. You're in control here with the data. When I click and make a point, I can take the coordinates from that point and go tell another map to actually go to that same point at a different zoom level. So I could have 2 different maps, one that's zoomed out and one that's zoomed in. I get to control whether the map is zoomable or not zoomable. So you can imagine all the different things that you can do. So with this, the way that I implemented in this file, what was easiest for me is, rather than having to deal with a lot of global variables, what I happen to do is, in a solution where you really only need one map, it's easier for me to reference and use one single custom function. So that's how I implemented. When you open this file, or when you click this remove button right here, it removes the instance, and we're going to use the debugger right now to look at the implementation of what happens when you initialize. So I am going to click on this button, Show Address, which I know calls the initialization script. So as we step through this, I pushed F7. I pushed the wrong one. Let's remove again. We'll click Show Address. Oh, remove, debugger, move the debugger, show address. Now I want the right key, which is stepping through. So we can see right here that we're getting this script call initialize map. This particular script we can see is saying if get as Boolean map view. Now this is the way that I implemented, because if I have a bunch of different scripts that do a bunch of different things, all needing to interact with a map view, I could use global variables, but that can get out of hand a little bit easier. I like to abstract and put my reference to a global variable, which is holding the value of the MapKit ID that I need to pass to all of the other MapKit functions. I create a custom function, and that is what that is right there. So I'm saying if I have a map view, then what we're going to do is we're going to remove the map view. In this particular case, I don't have a map view. So now I'm going to create a new map. Now this is the function that just basically does it for you. It does it automatically, which is absolutely awesome. And all you have to do is pass it this named object. Now I already told you that, or showed you, that the object that I have is just a text object. It can be a rectangle. I haven't tried with an oval. Don't know why you would, but it could be a button. It can be any object that has a name, because all the function is doing is using the coordinates of that object in order to determine where it's going to render. Now, whether it resizes or not is the auto sizing that you have in layout mode. So that's what you're going to want to turn on if you want the map to actually get bigger. Otherwise, it can be at a fixed size. Now, on the Macintosh, you can see right here, there's this quoted out string of current window. If you supply 0, that is the current frontmost window. Otherwise, you can target and get other windows with other MBS functions. And in iOS, if you create an iOS SDK, when I implemented it only worked with the main window, but I believe Christian has gotten it fixed because I emailed him about working with card windows, because a card window is in front of another window. On the Macintosh, it will work with card windows, and it's more than likely Christian has fixed that because he's super responsive. So we can see right here that this is going to initialize. This one function, as soon as we hit this, it's there and in the background. And you can see that the default is a map that doesn't have any of the settings turned on. Now, the way that I like to handle the settings is I like to do it within one single variable call. And that's what I've got right there. We'll take a look at that. We'll go in really quickly. As I step through this, we did not get an error. Otherwise, we would throw an error and capture that. In this case, we now need to move the value that was created in this local variable, which we can see is just a number value, or in this case, it shows that it's text with the tooltip right there. 78033 is the instance of this map in memory, at least according to the MBS plugin. So we've captured that into our global variable. So for the life of our solution, we are going to have access to that. If you're going to have multiple map views, my suggestion would be to create multiple custom functions for the different map views. How many times are you going to have more than 4 map views on a particular layout? I don't know. It depends on your solution. Then we have this settings. Now, settings we're going to see is where you get to control all of the different things of the map. The view that it has, whether it's zoomable or not, the zoom level that is your initial zoom level, the zoom controls, the compass, whether that is on or off, points of interest, all of those different things. So we can see that when I advance this, I am zooming to a certain level or showing the United States. I am also turning on hybrid. I am also turning on what just also got turned on was the compass here and then the zoom controls. So we can take a look at that in the script really quickly. As the script it finishes out here, we can see that in this particular case, because I had a value in this field, I am also automatically zooming to that, or in this case, I am going to a particular point where it's adding a pin. It's not adding a pin. We'll look at the pin code and see how that actually works. So let's go into the script space and see what those settings are. On the initialize map, we can see right here, this is just how I prefer to deal with all of the different settings. Now, here is the way that the MBS plugin works. Most every MBS call to a particular function returns an OK or an error. So you can see that what I've done is I've initialized all of these different variables. Now, a lot of the way that Christian shows his code is he uses basically this R, which I don't know what it means. R, I haven't taken the time for whatever the value is, but it'll have like R, 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 R. I don't like to do that. I like to understand what the particular function call is doing. So in this case, this is the mask. These are the buildings. This is the compass. This is the point of interest. The user location, zoom UI, scroll, pitch, etc. So you can see it's very easy for me to be able to read and understand this code. I am referencing, in this case, the map. This is where the map was created as the local variable before it was actually pushed into the global variable. And here we can see I'm using a substituting the list, and I'm just saying if I got an OK on every one of the things that I wanted to set on the map, then what that's going to return is it should be equal to OK, however many OKs I'm expecting from all of these individual functions. That's how I like to deal with MBS plugins, where I can keep all of the code in one variable, and it makes it much easier. I don't have to go in and out to see multiple variables. Now, of course, here in the script, if I did have multiple variables, yes, it's easier to read from the standpoint of this script, but it's harder to modify, or not harder. I simply just prefer this method. It keeps the script shorter, and there's not that many times that I'm going to go in and actually edit this code after the fact. And if I need to, it's just a simple double click. So with the map being initialized, all we need to do is just use the rest of the functionality in order to do whatever we want to implement into the solution, and let's go over some of those features. All right, so let's talk about some of the features that you'll probably want to use. Many of them are just single lines of code that make it super easy to do things. The first one is show address. So we can see right here that it's a little bit confusing because it has add pin right here. But when we look at this, my code is saying if I have a map view, which we should take a look at my custom function. The custom function map view right here, which makes the code read really easy. And not only that, it actually makes it easier to add to your solution because Christian's default reference is named map view. That's why I did what I did. But we can see right here that I say, if the global variable map view is empty, or we do not have a map view, meaning it's false, then we're returning false. We don't have a map view. Otherwise, what we're going to return, this custom function is going to return the value, which is the numerical value that's needed for any call to a map view function. It's going to return that value, which it's doing right there. That's why I like a custom function, because then the rest of my function calls look like this, and we can see how easy it is to implement. In fact, if you've got the MBS plugin installed, then typically you're inputting code like this. You type MBS, and then you start to type map view. It automatically comes up for you. You hit the period, and you get all of your other functions that you want. For example, if I was going to add a polygon, as soon as I select this, notice that Christian, which is already highlighted on screen, already uses the value of map view. Now, if you choose to use a custom function named map view, guess what? You don't have to add or do anything. You just simply advance the cursor, and then you're now going to add whatever is next, and so forth. So in this case, I would just be adding my JSON. So if I needed to do this using my expansion right here, I might add a line, I might indent, and then I'll type my keyboard expander shortcut of FMJSON, which will give me JSON right there, which I can then select that, and I'm ready to just start adding in all of my parameters, which, by the way, if you don't know, the MBS also has a keyboard shortcut of the brackets, which allow you to indent values using the tab, which is super convenient when you're using the MBS plugin. Literally, I've said this so many times, I can't imagine working in FileMaker without the MBS plugin. Literally, it is the other half of development within FileMaker in terms of all of the other stuff that MBS does. Look at my other videos here on YouTube. But I would just put in, whatever my values are here that in particular it needs. So the show address function is literally going to take a value. In this case, it's coming from this field called search. Again, generalized values work better. You can't necessarily use a highly specific address, but think about this. If you need to use the power of Google in conjunction with MapKit, there's nothing that stops you from having a web viewer right next to a MapKit, or the other way around. Whatever you want to do, you search in Google, you can click and hold in Google, and it will give you coordinates or get the address. You just simply copy that from that web viewer and then just go right over to the map view and put in the coordinates, and the coordinates will find the place on map. Yeah, it's just doing things in FileMaker with maps, with MapKit is so much easier than programming, doing stuff in JavaScript to JavaScript's API. So price of entry alone, the plugin is worth it for that one workstation that you need to do things with MapKit. Here you can add a pin when you actually do a search for a particular address with this function. In this case, you can see that I'm supplying false in this particular case. So every time that you do a search, if part of what you needed was, I need to search, and whatever that search result is, I need a pin automatically added, you can add that. Otherwise, you don't have to have those values right there. You can simply just do the search. I believe they're optional. I put them in because it's easier for me as a reminder, and it gives me a place where I can come and copy this code that I can optionally do that. All I have to do is supply a true, and then I provide an identifier and a color. So speaking of color, another feature that we have here, I will not save that script, is the ability to have pins. So here in the UI, I'll go into layout mode. I am simply using a popover, and in this popover, we can see that clearly I have conditional formatting. That conditional formatting, let's say I want to add a new color. Let's say you want to add a new color. I'm simply just going to go into this button bar. I'm going to add a new item. And let's say in this particular case, I don't have green. Here's how easy it is to set up green. I'm going to select purple. I'm going to, the optional parameter is what I need to get. So I'm going to select all of that, copy it. I am going to go to the next one. I'm going to reference this. It's add center pin. So I want to perform a script. That is going to be, I'll type in the word add. It's add center pin. I'll select my optional parameter. I'll paste in my code. I haven't set the color yet, and the reason is I'm not going to edit my script parameter now because I need to set my value. So I'll type in green right here. And what I want to do now is I want to choose conditional formatting. So I right-click to choose conditional formatting. I add a value. I simply want this to be true because I want this color to be green. So I select the icon color. I choose the green that I want to use. And FileMaker provides me with the hex value that I need right here. So I'm simply going to, I want this green right here, lighter green. So I simply just copy this from here, which I just did with Command or Control C. I click OK. I double click in order to use my same settings or my value. We'll zoom out so I can see this. I'll turn on the hand over button and I just zoom in and I paste in that color. So I set the color in conditional formatting, which will show when the user's looking at it, and I copied that hex value to give it as part of what's supplied to that particular script. Now, when we look at the script, the adding pins is the most complex out of all of everything else is just single function calls to the MBS plugin. One thing that we need to know is when we are adding pins, there's this thing called identifiers. Now, you get to use whatever identifier you want. The key thing here is there's a little bit of a problem. Initially, I started using UUIDs, but because UUIDs sometimes start with numbers, sometimes start with letters, the MBS plugin had a problem with that in terms of how it's forwarding those values to MapKit, and I was getting some NS errors, which is in Xcode, it's just an error that comes back in terms of it couldn't handle the numbers. So I found out that I had to prefix things with a value. So if you don't supply a value, if this is all just an empty string, what will happen is MBS will create and use its own incrementing identifier. Now you have to capture and store that identifier in your FileMaker database in order to know that it correlates to that particular MapKit. If you destroy a MapKit, everything goes away. You no longer have anything. But if you have captured those values into a FileMaker field in your database, you can, even when you initialize that map, just put all those pins in exactly the same point because you have saved all of those particular values of the color you used, the geo coordinates, all of the different things that you need. And that's exactly what's happening in this solution. That's what you get to copy and paste. Also notice there's other values that you get to set. You can set a title, you can set a subtitle, all of these things. And that is what's happening when we click on these pins. So when I go into browse mode here and remove and click show address, this is a new instance. It does not have any of my previous pins, but green is now going to be available. I keep zooming into like the heaviest part of LA for some reason. Let's go to the I don't know. Let's say I am a manager of dock slips and I am going to get this dock slip right here. And I'm going to put in a green pin. Yep, green pin works, base and B. Let's move over here and let's give this guy a red pin. We're going to watch what happens in this script so that I can explain the implementation of it. So we're going to open up the debugger. I will click on a orange pin for this guy. And we will see what happens in the debugger here. So first off, the adding a point has a lot of other values that you can use. You can always reference the MBS documentation. Those parameters are coming in. Let's show my data viewer here so that I can always look at them and we can take a look. So these are the values that we are needing, or that we have coming in. We've got the color, we've got the identifier. There you can see is a UUID that I use. This could match the UUID of a record, but again, remember, because UUIDs start with a number sometimes start with a letter. The ones with the numbers are currently failing unless Christian fixes this. But just add a prefix, and then you can rip that prefix off, and then you can use the UUID of a record ID to coordinate that particular identifier if you wanted to. Of course, you can do things in many other ways as well. Your subtitle, etc. Well, I want to take this JSON and I want to combine it with something that I get back when I geocode or reverse geocode the coordinates that are at the center point. Remember, everything hinges on this center point, the fact that we can overlay our crosshair lines, which makes it so useful. So we then are going to set up an identifier. In this case, I am pulling that identifier off. We can see right there that I did that. We are capturing my point, which my point is my latitude and my longitude. This came back from the function, the MBS functions, which if we were to look at those, we can look at them. We can simply, I don't have the script open. Typically with the script open, you can go double click and look at the actual variable because you can interact with the script while you're in the debugger. But in this case, we're adding a point. So this merge right here is using a custom function in this file called JSON merge object. And what it does is a shallow merge of two different objects. It requires that both of the objects have elements. If you have the same name in both objects, the last object wins. In other words, this second value will win if you have a key value pair that's already existing here. So as long as you create and merge in a unique key value, then you're doing just fine. So I am merging my point with my parameters, which I am then going to merge again with the reverse geocoded data. So we merge that object in. It now has all of the information that it needs in order to add a point to my map view. We add that point. It just got added. There's a quick little pause. Sometimes rendering on the map, you need a super short little pause for things. Now we're going to get the address. When we look at the get the address, this is the only function, I believe. I am doing a lookup here. And that is where it's within this particular function, I believe, that where we're getting the lookup. So when we look at the value returned from the lookup, yep, that's where we're getting our reverse geocode. So we'll take a look at that function really quickly here. But in essence, all of this information is coming back again from the MBS plugin. And you get pretty much everything that you could need and use in this. So in this case, I'm pushing into a global variable just for being able to look at it as a developer. Once I exit this, I'm exiting with the lookup value, all of the JSON that the reverse geocoder used. I am taking that result, I am merging the result into my original object, and now I'm saying as long as I have an identifier, create a related record. And that's what's being created right down here where we're going to see that's where that record is going to be created. As soon as this commit executes, there it is right there. All of that data has been saved, and as long as I don't get out of this map, let's hide that, and oops, I want to hide my data viewer is what I wanted to hide. So as long as I don't destroy this map, which if I go into layout mode, it won't render and I'll have to re-render it. But of course, with all of this data captured, I can then just cycle through this data and just get it back to this exact point. In fact, when I leave this layout, what you can do is capture the exact coordinates and the zoom level of this map, and you can come back to this exact point. In fact, I don't know if I do have another layout. This should be stored as part of that layout. So when I go to this layout and then I come back to it, it looks like the map needs to re-render, or it does re-render, but with that data, using an on layout enter, I would be able to go back to that same point with those points, those pins rendered. So just remember that if you are moving to different layouts, the one thing that you want to do probably, if you need to click a script and it needs to go do something, you can create a new window off screen, move to a different layout, that's Windows off screen, do whatever you want, and then destroy that window without interrupting your MapKit. Although, because I just created a new window, and I haven't done this myself yet, I saw that the MapKit moved to the new window, the new instance of the window. I'll have to test creating a new window in a different layout to see if the MapKit moves. Long story short, you can try and play with all kinds of things in this particular technology, using MapKit, using the MBS plugin. I think I've given you a lot of really good ideas. Everything else that you need is in the technique file. Getting the center coordinates. Again, like I said, it's all just single function calls. Toggling the map styles, whether you do standard, satellite, hybrid, satellite flyover, hybrid flyover, muted standard. Toggling your crosshair is just simply a matter of turning a global variable on and off, refreshing the object in order to show and hide the crosshairs. No big deal. The biggest amount of code in this is this function, this script right here, add center pin. Toggling the visibility of things, getting an address. Also remember that you have the ability to go out and use external APIs. So in this file, I have a function right here. Well, it's not actually a function, but if you were to use this particular URL, then you would be able to do a reverse lookup using an API. But in this case, you need an API key from this particular website, Apify, I guess is how you would say it. You can also use Google's API. They allow you, for most FileMaker solutions, I would say, you can basically get away with all the free resources you would be able to use in one day. So unless you're providing a public website where people are doing a lot of things, most of the time using what you can get for free through the Google Maps API, you usually won't even hit the quota that you have. And again, it's just so cool that you would be able to have a web viewer right next to a MapKit and have multiple MapKits just do all kinds of cool stuff. So I think I've covered it pretty well. Usually my videos are very long and exhaustive. I want to give you all of the details so that if you have difficulty and you miss something, you're able to come back and see this. Of course, you've got this file for free. And if you want to learn more about FileMaker and creating professional solutions in FileMaker, I provide all of that kind of content over at FileMakerMagazine.com. So I'd like to wish you much luck with your own FileMaker development, and until next time, happy FileMaking.
We hope you've enjoyed this video tutorial, and we'd like to say thank you for your subscription and your support. If you're not already a subscriber, head on over to www.FileMakerMagazine.com/subscribe for more information about the benefits of joining.